So I want to welcome everyone to Small Business Big Target, small business in the cybersecurity landscape. We have Scott Grentzman with CMIT Solutions with us today, and we're very pleased to have his support in sharing his knowledge with our SCORE clients. But as we get started, I want to make sure that you are utilizing all of the resources that SCORE has to offer for your small business. Our goal is to share with you information on small business. We do that in a couple different ways. One is through our website, score.org. Lots of great information there. Templates you can download from financial to marketing to business plans to podcasts to blogs to recordings of other topics that we've done in the past. So lots of really great information. So seek out the score.org website to look for that type of thing. We also share information through our workshops and webinars. We advertise those through social media, on a newsletter, and they are also listed on our website as well. So I think though the most important way we share information is through our mentoring. And our mentors are volunteers. They come to us with a variety of skills and experiences to share with the small business community. Uh, if you've never had a mentor, a beginning session will be them learning about you. They want to know what your goals and challenges are, and they're going to help you put together a plan so that you can be successful. When do you come to SCORE? A lot of people are sure if they need to already have a business going, and you don't. We work with everyone in the wide range from I'm trying to decide if I should open a small business to in that planning phase to starting, growing your business, and even exiting your business. So it's definitely a wonderful experience. It is free, so consider getting a mentor today. So that's the next question. How do you get that mentor? There are multiple ways to get a mentor. I'm going to say the easiest would be on the score.org website. There's going to be a let us do a matching box. Put your zip code in. That will bring up a form. And on that form, it'll ask you a couple really quick questions. And that information is used to match you to the chapter that's nearest you and to pick a mentor within that area that can best assist you. So those are, and then listed here also, you're going to see the different chapters in our district. You can also go directly to the chapter in your district or area if you prefer to do it that way. So today, a little bit of upfront. I'd like to use Q&A. It allows me to keep track of any questions that you have for the presenter, and I don't lose track of them. Sometimes in chat, if there's a lot of activity in chat, we can kind of lose where those questions went to. But I will watch and monitor either, and we will ask your questions towards the end to make sure that you have everything you need to know about cybersecurity for your business. We are recording, and that recording will be shared on the score.org/Boston website. From the graphic there, you can see it'll be found under the blue bar local workshops. You'll find the previously recorded section where we'll hold that this recording. So that's where you're going to find that. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this down, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Scott. It's all yours.
Great. Thanks very much, Teresa. Really appreciate the opportunity to be here. Please confirm that you can see the
Yes,
data here. I think we're good.
we're good.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, welcome everybody. Small business, big target. What small businesses need to know about today's cybersecurity landscape? And there's an awful lot to learn and an awful lot to be aware of. Let me quickly review the agenda. We'll get you through this within the next half hour, 40 minutes, and leave ample time for some Q&A. So load up with some questions. There's lots of ways we can go. I'll tell you a little bit about CMIT, who I am, and what we're about, and more importantly, why you should care about cybersecurity. We'll spend a little bit of time on some statistics there. And then we'll get into the meat of it about, what are some of these common attacks and what you can do to prevent them today, and how to protect your business. We'll have a little bit on next steps, and then happy to answer questions for whatever the balance of the time is. With that, my name is Scott Krensman. I'm the president of CMIT Solutions of Boston, Newton, and Waltham. You got my email and phone there. And I am part of CMIT Solutions as a franchisee, which means you really get the best of both worlds here. You get me as a local business owner with a local team able to help out businesses of all sizes here. But as you grow, or if you know folks in other areas, well, we can help you anywhere you are in the country. We have over 200 people like me across the country and over 900 technicians with literally decades of experience in the technology arena. So we service all kinds of activities, all focused on the small to medium-sized business owners doing all outsourced IT work, from help desk to cloud security to cybersecurity to compliance to helping you migrate applications to email, you name it, we touch it. So we'll get into the rest of the details of what you need to be concerned with coming up now. So why do you care? Or why should you care about cybersecurity? The answer is there's a lot of good reasons. Let's start with the first one here. 43% of all cyber attacks target small businesses. Literally, you may think you're too small, but there's no such thing as too small. You may think that your business isn't attractive to a hacker, and maybe they don't really care about the content of the data or what you do particularly in your business. But the simple truth is you care about your business. And if you don't want it disrupted or potentially harmed beyond its repair, that's why you care. So financially, well, I can show you statistics that show it anywhere from several hundred thousands to millions of dollars. The point being, small business owners don't have extra cash waiting to hand it off to the next hacker that comes along. Your business is too important. So let's be aware there's a financial impact to when bad things happen, and you don't want it to be you. So that's another reason why you care. Downtime. And it's even more than downtime here. 60% of small businesses that experience a true cyber attack don't even survive 6 months after the attack occurs. These are not like brand new statistics. These have been around, tried and true. This is not, just in this year. This has stood for as long as I've been in business now here locally. This is what the data keeps proving out year in and year out. So a small business owner doesn't have the extra cash, doesn't have the extra people, doesn't have the client relationships that will allow them to survive. They can go to another competitor and go somewhere where their data hasn't been hacked or where they feel that, it's just too big a risk. So that's another reason why it's important. And then if you're storing sensitive data, well, you're just like clearly making yourself a target. So, and besides that, there's, local Massachusetts rules on disclosure, federal rules on disclosure, that mean you have to protect that data, do what you can to protect it. And if not, you got to report it to the authorities should you have a problem. And that you don't want to have to ever be in that situation. So these are all reasons why you do care about what's going on in the cybersecurity realm. So what are these common attacks and how do you go about preventing them? Well, let's start, they're all within the cycle here, what I'm going to talk about today anyway, with respect to social engineering based attacks. And it's a combination of phishing, malware, and ransomware. And phishing, as it says here, is, is really the way that many attacks begin. And it delivers malware, it can deliver ransomware. It's a way that the bad guys get into your systems. And we'll talk a little bit more about, what that looks like and how they go about it. Um, so, phishing, they lure you. That's why it's a hook. They lure you into giving away your personal information, something that's valuable. Malware, once they're in from a phishing expedition, they can then deliver malware. These are things, maybe it doesn't totally take you down. Maybe it's just a way of infecting you and causing trouble. Maybe it's a way of gathering more data so that they can use it in a later attack, or a later attack on you, or a later attack on other people, using you as a vehicle to help them attack. Uh, Either way, bad news, you don't want it. Ransomware is when, they hold you hostage. And if you haven't done all enough of the right things, you might either have to pay it or you lose. And even if you do pay it, there's never a guarantee that you're going to get your data anyway. So just be aware what happens in the ransomware front. So let's first talk about social engineering here. What is social engineering? It's manipulating people into divulging information they otherwise wouldn't divulge, that leads to a compromise in the security of your business, or the technology that's supporting your business. And it happens a number of ways. There's a number of things they try to get from you, from usernames and passwords to credit card details. Most of the time it comes through email, but who amongst us hasn't received a text these days that says, "Oh, I'm from your cable, I'm Xfinity, I'm your cable provider. Please pay your bill by clicking here." Or, "Hey, I've got to refund some money. I'm your bank. Please verify your data through a text." Or maybe it comes through Facebook or even LinkedIn. Could be through the traditional social media realm. These bad people are very smart in how they try to find ways to find the weakness in how you think and feel about things. And the goal is to get this access. That's what it's all surrounding. And so, as I said, they use Facebook, LinkedIn, things you're familiar with, things your text, your messages app, which you use all the time. But you're not expecting bad news to come that way. You think only friends can actually reach you. But that's not the case anymore. You've got to be aware. What do you look for? So this is some of the keys here. What can you do to empower yourself to protect yourself? A, within your business, educate and train your employees. And that's going to be a theme. You're going to hear that throughout every one of these items that we're talking about here. Verify the identity of who the sender is. Know that just because it says this, maybe in the title of where it came from, that maybe that's not it. You need to double check that. Establish protocols before you take action on something. Really double check. And with everything, and this is just a universal for anywhere you've got passwords, make sure you've got multi-factor on anything, on any kind of account you care about, make sure you've got multi-factor. And there are better ways, there are stronger ways of multi-factor, but you still need to have some form of multi-factor. It shouldn't just be a username and password on anything that you consider valuable. Determine, how much information to share. Another factor. Don't let everything get out in the public. Monitor and respond to suspicious activity. So if something bad happens, don't just hide in a corner and say, "Oh, bad me. I'm not going to tell anybody about it. Actually, it's important, if you or somebody that works for you has a problem, that you need to know about it sooner. You don't want to know about it after the fact. You want to know when it's happening or just after it happens, so that, hey, if there's some changes you got to make, changing the account, changing the username and password of that person, if you feel you made a mistake, it's important to communicate that. And encouraging a culture where everybody needs to be responsible to each other and aware. Again, these are the themes. What's next? Let's talk about phishing. Phishing is social engineering where they pretend to be somebody they're not. Targets, as we've said, usernames and passwords. How does that work? As I said, it comes through email a lot of the time. Most of the time, the base hack, before the worst things happen, it starts with a phishing expedition. They have somehow gathered compromising information so that they can get access to the systems. Once they're in, they then hang out and look around. In fact, on average, the data says hackers are in a system for upwards of 6 months before they actually take action. Why is that? Because there's nobody detecting that they got in, and they can spend their time looking around to seeing where's the biggest value, what's the best way to take advantage of this situation. They're in no hurry. They're in no hurry to do that. So what does phishing look like? It'll come across as an email many times, and it may look innocent at the surface, but you gotta dig deeper. You gotta ask some of these additional questions. I'm going to explain something in the next minute here. How do you prevent it? Well, particularly unsolicited emails from people you don't know, just by definition. Be skeptical, take a critical look at it. If it's, presenting something that has the sense of urgency, a fair amount of money is involved, there are things you can do to really check this out first. Look for spelling and grammatical errors, although these days the bad guys are getting smarter about not just having it, not be as well written as it otherwise could be. But here's something that you can do. You hover over a URL, and in many cases, don't even click on it. But if you hover over the URL, you can see where it's pointing to. And if it's pointing to something that seems off, don't go there. Or if it says it's from your bank, click here to go to your bank, rather than using the email to go to your bank, to get there to check out whatever it is it's imploring you to do. You go to your bank directly, open up the browser window yourself, and go to the known location of the bank and check out the data that it's suggesting that you otherwise need to take action on. Don't necessarily trust it from the email itself. And in all cases, we've said it, and I'm going to continue saying it, have two-factor authentication turned on. And if you can afford and want to have some anti-phishing software, well, that helps take away a whole round of bad emails. In my experience, anywhere from 15 to 30% of emails get categorized in the spam and phishing categories. Just imagine look at how much time that could save if you don't have to look at 15 to 30% of your email. So where you've just got to hit delete or be questioning it. All these things take just a little extra time. So these things are time savers, and it's self-protection. Educate the employees. Again, security awareness training. We'll talk about that at the end. It's very important. Verify requests. If they're asking for something that's very valuable, well, take that extra time and step. Uh, when you get the unsolicited email that says, "Oh, the boss is telling me that I got to go pick up, $1,000 worth of gift cards," maybe you'll think twice, maybe three times before just doing that kind of thing. Talk to the boss, check out the email first. These are all just inexpensive ways to prevent bad news from happening. Let's talk about malware here. So malware, can range from just stealing data. So maybe they just want to steal data. So they broke in, they stole your data, they'll use it for other purposes. Or they want to just disrupt your operation. You've, caused some financial damage, shut you down for a bit. These can come in through infected email, malicious websites. If you clicked on a bad website, uh, something could get downloaded and start running. Software downloads, or when you plug in the little USB keys. These are all places, sources where malware can come from. So you need to have antivirus protection. You need to have endpoint detection and response kind of things there to help prevent it. But these are things you need to be aware of. What do you do? Well, don't click on it. Again, what's the best ways you got to go through to prevent malware from getting in your systems? Well, make sure your software stays up to date. It starts with the operating system. You need somebody should be making sure that the systems are kept up to date with all the right security patches. Make sure your antivirus has the most recent set of definitions. It's not the most sophisticated, but it is the minimum requirement these days for keeping your computers safe. Use the software. Make sure it's turned on. Don't just have it sitting there and turned off. If you've got it, make sure it's enabled. Always be cautious with email attachments, particularly if it's not the most common forms, being a PDF file or a JPEG file kind of a thing. When they start sending, sometimes spreadsheets can have what's called macros in them that can then run files that are at the operating system level. These things, you got to be careful. You got to know who's sending you the data and make sure that the name is consistent with what you might expect, and or that they've told the person who's sending it has told you to expect this kind of attachment. Uh, got to be very concerned. And if you don't have software that scans attachments when they run, again, got to keep your eyes open. Download software only from trusted sources. So you have to know where you're going and where you're downloading from. It goes without saying. If you have firewalls, be it the physical variety, if you're in your own office and you have a firewall, turn it on. If you don't have a physical firewall and have a software firewall, turn that on. Make sure it's configured properly, because again, just having it there and on is insufficient. So they've got to be configured right. But it starts with having it and being aware of it. And the number one thing to prevent bad things from happening, or to minimize the disruption when bad things do happen, let me say that properly, to minimize the disruption when bad things will and do happen, make sure your data is backed up properly. One of the things that the bad guys do all the time is turn off, once they're in your systems, they will turn off your backups. Why? Because if you don't have your backup to rely upon when they implement whatever bad deed they're trying to do, well, then they've got you. You have no other alternative. But if you do have a backup, you can say, see ya, I don't need to pay you or worry about what you've done. I can either shut down the computer, get a new computer, and I can start up on this other computer, and I'm not losing a beat. So backups are very important here. And as always, again, training. And everybody's got to be aware of what to look for and how to prevent it. So don't just think just because you know it that the other person working with you or for you necessarily knows as much as you do. Make sure to have discussions about what to do in these situations. Last but not least, in this category here is the ransomware. So this is the granddaddy. This is where they're really coming to take advantage of you. And they'll look for payment these days in cryptocurrency, but it doesn't make a difference whether it's cryptocurrency or dollars. Cryptocurrency is just less traceable in the system. So that's why they ask for cryptocurrency. Either way, it requires you having to pay real money at at best the chance of getting your actual data back, if in fact they have deployed the ransomware successfully and are holding you hostage. So this can all start from a phishing email. Most of the time it does. Bad software download or a malware, or somebody gave you a USB and you thought it was safe and you plugged it in, and sure enough, something bad happens and now you can't access your computer or your files. As it says, you know, you pay anywhere 10,000, 50,000, could be more. These bad guys want to make it bad enough so that it hurts, but not so bad that you just say you lose. So they're trying to make a buck at it too. It's a very easy business for them, and it's statistical. And if you don't pay them, that's not the end of their day. They've got somebody else that will pay them, that they spent, 5 more seconds on, to go infect them. So they know what they're doing, and they've got it down to a science as to how to take advantage of you. These signs, this kind of warning sign, it's a bad day, a bad week, bad month, maybe a bad end to the business if you haven't done the right things to further protect yourself, and make your situation more recoverable. It's very hard. So what do you do? Again, I've said it, I'm repeating it. Back up your data. Very important. Keep your software updated. Again, notice a theme. Use strong security software. Okay, so we haven't added that into the list, but I've talked about it as we've been talking about these things. You need additional help. It's good to have your eyes open. It's good to be cautious, but having additional tools at your disposal to help keep you safe, uh, does have an increase in protecting you. So there is a price to be paid for it, but it is very helpful. Make sure your employees are educated, multi-factor authentication is there. Make sure you operate kind of under the least access program. So user privileges should really be considered. Not everybody needs to have access to all things all the time. So use that. If you're the business owner in particular, even you may not need to have access to all things all the time. You may want to have that delegated to particular people so that you're not necessarily the weakest link, that if somebody breaks into your account, that they have access to everything. So there's a way to think about this, that provides additional protection. Use network segmentation. I could tell you stories about this. I'll tell you a brief one about Target. If you remember, several years ago, Target was hacked. And by the way, it wasn't hacked directly. Uh, when Target was hacked, it was actually their HVAC provider was hacked. Why was their HVAC provider? Well, they were easy to break into, and as it turns out, the HVAC provider to Target happened to have a file that had the list of the Wi-Fi passwords to all of the Target stores. So they said, "Well, isn't that nice? We got that from the HVAC vendor. We'll go camp out in front of Target and try to cause some mayhem." Now, had Target been smart and had network segmentation in their environment, then maybe the only thing that those hackers would have had access to were the thermostats that the HVAC vendor was trying to control. But instead, Target did not have proper network segmentation, so that all of their core business data, including the register data, which included the credit card data, was flowing on the same network that the little HVAC thermostat was communicating with. So guess what? The bad guys got to see all the credit card data, and what did they do? They waited until it was Christmas time to implement their hack and suck in all the credit card data. All from what? Not a well, multiple things really. There's multiple failures across the board there, but one of which was network segmentation. It's a long story to tell you. It's important to segment your data where your business data is on one part of the network, your Wi-Fi and phone access for basic use is on another segment, and maybe voice over IP for the phone system is on a different network segment. So again, keep things controlled, limit user privileges. These are all play together in this story. Monitor and respond to threats. So again, be aware. Don't just say, oh no, it happened and run away from the computer. If something bad happens, tell somebody. Tell somebody. As they say in the TSA security, see something, say something. Don't let it just be there and stick your head in the ground. Nothing good is going to come from it. So those are the thoughts on how to, what to look for in how to protect your business. Now let's talk a little bit more about what that means. You know, there's a whole host of services that surround working, in the IT space. We're a managed service provider, so we cover a whole host of these. I'll talk a little bit more about the cybersecurity layers in a minute, but you've got the cloud, you've got IT guidance, IT support when you need help desk. Unified communications is making sure that, you know, for the positive operation of the business, that what's on your phone is the same, that data that you can access from your iPad is the same as what you can access from your computer, is the same where you can get your voice over IP either in your desk at the office or on your cell phone when you're traveling, and access to the voicemails, etc. That all ties together, and that you can access the files wherever you are, whether you're at your desk, in the office, on your phone, watching your kids play soccer, that you still can get the data that you need to help run your business, and that's always available, but always secure. Not just available, but secure too. You've got to have it protected, and 2FA is turned on, and the data's, you've got to make sure the application is always updated. Again, all those security features that we just talked about for 10 minutes previously, they all apply in each one of these buckets. Data backup, you see, is one of the next ones. For those that have higher requirements, maybe you've got some compliance. Are you dealing with medical data? Do you have any financial information in your systems? If so, you've got regulatory and compliance issues. Very important to know what applies to you in the business that you're in. IT procurement. Hey, you don't want to buy what's called gray market goods, even necessarily from Amazon. You want to buy through a reputable dealer. And I'm not saying that Amazon doesn't have that. I'm just saying, be aware that they're just a broad dealer. If you use a technology firm to help you buy technology, you know that they're standing behind it, and that you're going to get truly goods that are manufactured from the right people. It can be like walking down Fifth Avenue in New York, where yeah, there's the Gucci store there, but somebody on the street is more than happy to sell you a Gucci bag. But I guarantee you, it doesn't have the same characteristics. Certainly doesn't cost as much either, but you won't be happy with the long-term quality, or some bad things that could happen. At least if you're running your business that way. Maybe for fashion, you're willing to do so. Network management, we already talked about what the risks are there through the Target example previously. Very important, making sure you've got your applications configured properly so that you can share data and access what you need. So these are all things that go into helping you have a good operating business. From a cybersecurity standpoint, it's all about the number of layers you've got. As many layers as you have is just what makes it even harder for the bad guys to sneak in and be effective. Email security is critical. We've talked about how phishing is sort of the entry point to bad news. So having the right level of email security is critical. DNS filtering, we've talked about clicking on bad links and hovering over these links. Well, if you have a DNS filter, it helps further prevent you from being able to successfully click on a link that is a known bad site. So that's another way to have protection. Phishing protection is within the email security domain. Multi-factor authentication is that third dimension that, besides username and password, it gives something that a hacker doesn't have easy access to: your phone, your biometrics, etc. Another way of validating you are who you say you are, so that only the right person can get access to the data. Endpoint detection and response, I alluded to this earlier. This is about protecting the device in its entirety, using artificial intelligence as a backbone for helping prevent bad behavior. And it's a critical item. For those that have regulatory and compliance requirements, well, SIMSOC, Security Information and Event Management and Security Operations Center, that's a level that's even higher, that ensures, really, you want to know if the bad guys are forming a team and knocking on the back door, maybe climbing up to the second floor and seeing if your window is open. But before they've broken in and you want to know that they're out there, well, a SIMSOC helps alert you to, hey, there are bad guys at the doorstep. They're knocking on the window. They may not have broken in yet, but you need to be aware that they're out there. So that's what a SIMSOC does for you. Security awareness training, we'll talk about that a little more, but that's all about that education realm. And encryption. Make sure your data on the computer is encrypted, so that in case somebody steals it, if they don't have the right code to get into the computer, at least it's not freely available to them. So that's some of this cybersecurity. You got single sign-on, antivirus. I've already stated is sort of at the low level. Remote monitoring and management is sort of a core tool from an IT operator's perspective as to how we ensure your systems are kept up to date from an operating system perspective, and for remote access when you need help. Cloud file backup, we've talked about the importance of backup. So, one point for everybody, maybe do you have Google as your Google Workspace as the place that you do your work in, or do you have Microsoft? Those are the two biggest providers of data productivity and email providers across the country. Well, if you do, you may think that, boy, they're big providers and my data is always safe there. Well, the answer is no. They do not guarantee your data. It's in the fine print, and who takes time to read the fine print? Well, we do, and we'll let you know that if you don't have your data backed up above and beyond what Google and Microsoft does, well, then you've got a loophole, because if they have a hiccup, you could have a bad day. So cloud file backup is very important. Mobile device management and firewall we've alluded to throughout this time. So what are some of the next steps? What can you do as a small business person trying to just stay ahead of the game? Cybersecurity awareness training. There are tools out there that do it for free or low cost. I'll give you a link to check out some in a moment. But this is sort of the core thing from an educational standpoint. To keep everybody on the same page, we highly recommend it. What's the other thing? We've talked a lot about email and email protections. And what is one of the first things you need to understand when you're opening up your business? That you really do need a professional business address. If your email as part of your business ends in @gmail.com, @yahoo.com, @AOL.com, or @hotmail.com, you've got a problem. You don't control your identity as much when that happens. You need your own domain to control the security features and configuration. Otherwise, you're left to what Google, Yahoo, AOL, and Microsoft have, which is not much of anything, and you don't get to control it. So, and they're while they may be free, free comes at a different price. So you don't want to be like that fish on the hook there, where they got you out of water and you're in trouble. So make sure to have a professional email address. If you need help, you can always find us at cmitsolutions.com/B&W. And as I said just a moment ago, there's some free or inexpensive resources that you can check out. Feel free to scan that QR code or enter this long cmitsolutions.com/Boston-MA-1020/free-resources. There'll be a little gated area. You just got to enter your name and email and website if you have one, and you can download some free tools. So that brings us to the end, Teresa, in terms of the formal part of the presentation. I'd be happy to take some questions from folks, and looks like I did it in about 30 plus minutes as I advertised. So
Yeah, you did great. So we do have a question. And I want to say now's time to get your questions in if you're out there and you have something you want to know about. How can I find out that our business is safe? Is malware bites enough?
Okay, so there's no single tool that will say, well, if you only had that, you're now safe. No, it's not like that. Malware is a good um, uh, tool. It's not one that we use, professionally to recommend, but I do know a lot of folks that use Malwarebytes. That provides a low-level piece. It's a good start, but again, it's as I was describing here, there's a lot of layers to this, and so I'm glad you've got Malwarebytes, but you need to pay attention. You need to always make sure it's updated. And there are other tools as well that you could think about deploying to give you additional degrees of security.
Okay. I'm not seeing any other questions. So please definitely get those. Let me know. Tell me to wait if you're typing. So, because we want to make sure you get all your questions answered. So, is there, if you're a one man show, are there like one or, like a couple things that you can do just getting started that to keep, you mentioned having a professional email. Um, is there other things that you should consider? Oh, I saw somebody says the QR code's not working.
Oh, well, that would be unfortunate. Let me try it myself quickly right here. It worked for me when I tried it. Uh, you're right. It has been deactivated, of course. Well, it worked for me yesterday when I tested it out. Then I would say you've got to sadly type in this long. Let's see if I can get that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, can you copy paste that into
See if I
chat?
can. Well, I can't copy and paste it, but I will. Since I know what it is, it's a lot easier for me to type it into the chat. cmitsolutions.com/Boston MA 1020/free resources. It worked for me literally earlier. Um, and let's go make sure that that is working too. So that does bring us to the real web page. So
Okay.
you've got it in the text there. So chat now has it.
I do have someone asking, what kind of person should I hire to help me take care of this
Right.
cybersecurity? Do you
Right.
hire?
So, outsourced IT folks, somebody like us as a managed service provider at CMIT, there are other folks in the business too. So, anybody that helps small to medium-sized businesses, is there to help you. We find, a lot of folks, go to the youngest person they know Maybe their son or daughter is in college, even high school these days. They understand how to use technology, but that's not the same as being professionally educated in what it means to be safe from a cybersecurity standpoint, to be safe from a backup standpoint, to understand all the tools. So somebody who's a true professional in the managed services space is the right kind of folks to talk to.
Okay. I see somebody in chat. The form on the website does not do anything when I click on download now. It just refreshes and empties the fields. Will this come as an email?
Well, it certainly should come down. Let's go see that. I didn't double check today. You're right. That is what it looks like, uh, isn't it? Well, that would be very upsetting. It should come as an email to you or it should open up the PDF behind and download. Both is what it should be doing.
Okay.
And shame on me for not double checking that part, just as I checked the QR code. So sorry for that. We'll get that up and running within the next 24, 48 hours, folks. If you're having trouble getting it now, I apologize. We will make sure that gets working as soon as possible.
Well, and if you want to send me the QR code that's working and the link address, I can send a follow-up email to everyone and let them know that it's up and running so that they can get that information.
Yeah.
Okay. I had a breach with Google Ads India where they used my domain to monetize their own sites with Google AdSense and destroyed my IP reputation. Have you ever seen that happen before?
Not specifically, but uh, this deals with how you've got security on your domain name. And again, part of that is having multi-factor on anything that has uh, any control or with respect to control of your business. So you've got to have these additional security layers, just as the banks sort of require you to have multi-factor these days, and most domain registrars have you do that. But this sounds like one where that wasn't the case, or maybe you trusted somebody that was supposed to be doing something right and then stole it. I can't tell exactly, which way that happened in that particular case. But this is where, again, you've got to have positive control of these things as much as you can. And when you hear about things that go off, well, then that's when you've got to disable it and, get a new credential if you didn't otherwise have multi-factor set up and somebody has actually stolen your, it's basically somebody stole the identity.
Okay. What service do you recommend or services do you recommend for your email? I have Google Workspace, so my domain is what is displayed, but it's still Google services.
Yeah, so Google services are fine as long as you're not using, the free gmail.com. So if it's yourbusiness.com host that is receiving email through Google, that's fine. You then have to make sure Google Workspace is properly configured in as many security aspects as is appropriate. So that's so there's that piece. Then there's having the additional overlay of having some spam and phishing software that is ahead of Google in terms of trying to filter stuff out before it even gets into the Google environment.
Okay. You mentioned system monitoring. Do you mean software other than antivirus?
Yes, I do. So, many of those are not necessary. The best of those are not necessarily available to individuals. They sell through the channel, so through managed service providers. We use, for example, Sentinel-1 as our endpoint detection and response capable solution. These provide the highest level of security on a device level basis, but there's some free or inexpensive ware choices that's in this PDF that I wish was working properly to help you find some other choices.
Okay. Um, do you recommend something like PF Sense, Open Sense, pro and cons to using them? Question mark.
Yes, so for those folks that don't know what PFSense is, PFSense is a software-based firewall system. So that means all your internet traffic you would want to configure to funnel through this firewall in the cloud, and both go outbound from your computer and inbound to you through it. So those are legitimate uh, software firewalls. It's open source. We use it in certain situations for folks. So we totally support them. But what is important, again, having it is one thing, having it configured properly is another. So that's what takes the effort. It's kind of easy to go acquire it. It's not quite as easy to have it configured so that you're getting the maximum amount of security protection. But step one is having it. So that's a good start.
Okay. Okay, I think that's all of our questions. So we will get a follow-up email out. The information Scott will have let us know when that form's functioning correctly, and we'll resend the links to everyone that was here today to make sure that you have that you can get that information from him. So, all right. Well, thank you so much, Scott. Thank you everyone for joining us. We hope to see you on our next webinar, and have a great day.
Thanks very much, Teresa. Have a good day, everybody.
Bye.